wants to be like, oh, I was bullied or I was assaulted and like what was happening inside of me. No one wants to look at that. That's painful. I absolutely understand and respect and empathize with that. And I've done it with myself.
Same.
With my days where I was sexually assaulted, or I was in, situations where I was sexually harassed at work by my manager and, eventually had to call it out because he was getting me in trouble with like higher ups. I didn't want to do that. I didn't even believe in that. I would be like, oh, you want to show me your dick? Ha ha ha, whatever. Like I would laugh it off, but then he started to get me in trouble and I was like, okay, well now I have to say something because I'm in trouble. And I was powerful enough to do that. And I know a lot of people aren't, but I was. And you know what happened? No one backed me up who had witnessed it going down.
Wow.
Single person who had seen it for months of this guy pulling power trips on me, trying to have sex with me. No one.
Ugh.
And whatever, it sucks. But like, I was allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel powerful enough to say, hey, I don't want to start. Actually, I would say that, but he would keep going.
Yeah.
It was, and this is where we have to take power over ourselves. Like, that's not saying what he did was right. I didn't, it ended up okay. Like, I ended up keeping the job. He ended up leaving, which they said was that he chose to leave, but I'm not sure if that was the truth. But I sat with it afterwards too. I left that day and I bawled. I cried so much. And I was looking at like a number of dynamics in my life. And I was like, what the fuck is happening with me? Things in my life right now. And I was, like I said, meditating, journaling, doing yoga all these times a day. And there was still this kind of like unconscious stuff. And it was the childhood trauma that I was bypassing without realizing I was bypassing it. And as I went to Pacifica and started to heal those, and then I was like a victim to, this was my favorite thing to be a victim to, this is so funny, but the world is so fucked up and everybody's sick. That is true. How I relate to that story depends on whether I'm a victim or not.
Oh, that's so important. So like, can you give us an example of how you relate to that as a victim and then how you relate to it maybe not?
Well, I will tell you a story, actually. So I was really good friends with this girl, and she's in the wellness world. Maybe she'll listen to this, who knows? And birthday dinner, and this was 2018. Yeah, 2018. And I was in Pacifica, so I was like in the middle of Pacifica. So you guys, just to give you a little bit of, what that looked like, I lived in New York City, was teaching yoga, working for free as an intern, and flying back and forth once a month to Pacifica, which is in Santa Barbara. So I'd fly from New York City to LA.
California. Oh my God, that's like a 6-hour flight.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you stay there for 3 nights, and then I'd drive back to LA, take a yoga class before I got on my flight, flew back to New York, and I was living alone on the Upper East Side. So basically was impoverished.
Wow.
I went $100,000 in debt. I had no money. And so here's a friend of mine who is a well-known yoga teacher. She's, wellness guru-esque, whatever. And she's like coming into her stage of abundance, really. Like she had kind of gone from, not the same story, but like, not making money. And she left the fashion world and she was coming into like, I'm making money. And we went to her birthday dinner and I was like, listening to everyone at the table talk about how they wanted to retire when they were 40. And I was like, my heart was hurting because I was like, how can you as a healer think you're going to retire when you're 40 when the world is so sick?
Yeah. I was like, that's some fast work.
Like, God, the world's so sick. Like, I feel like I have a mission, but I was like so impoverished and I was tired. I was sad. There was like some weird romantic shit going on in my life and I was sad. And I didn't present my best self, no question, but I was in a really, I was in it, right? Like a friend of mine always say, they should have a disclaimer that says, your life will transform by the time you end this. You might quit your job. You might get divorced. You might that's
the disclaimer I now say to people who come into my program, because for real, that literally happens every time you have a hugely transformative experience like that, like an inner spiritual and like psychological reckoning. It's over.
like in the middle of it because I started Pacifica in 2016. I graduated 2019. So this was 2018. I was in it, right? So after her birthday, some things happened that upset me, and I reached out and was like, hey, this upset me. This is why. Let's talk about it. She kind of came back at me, like arguing with me, whatever. I ended up going through, because I was going through it. Something happened. I didn't reach out for a couple of months. I finally reached out to her, and she was like, I don't want friends in my life who aren't high vibe. And I was like, okay.
I love that. I mean, I get it, but I'm also like, oh, come on.
No, it's not. It was bullshit, right? Because it was bullshit because relationships have ups and downs. Like just because you expand your consciousness does not mean that everything's going to be like, oh, we just float on a cloud and everything's peaceful. Like that's not
a cult.
Right.
Like that's something to be afraid of. Like if you see people who literally have no feelings, like, or just like happy all the time, just know that something's wrong. Something is off.
I'm 1,000% all about being higher consciousness, but higher consciousness means, when she said that to me, I said, look, I am in it right now. I can own that I'm in a shitty place. I didn't want to come to your birthday. I'm in so much debt. I couldn't afford to come to your birthday, and I went anyways. And she still was just like, no, let's put a pin in this relationship. And I was like, oh my God, you're an asshole. Wow. And I kind of, because this is how I felt. And I still kind of feel that way. But what I will say is that was me in a place of healing where I was a victim and maybe needed to be at that moment in time. Right? Where I was like, the world is so sick. Everything around me is so sick. I am drowning in my own everything. And I had a lot of addictive behaviors. I was watching so much Netflix. I was attached to judgment, to comparison, to overanalyzing, to, unable to really be happy for abundance because I was in such a scarcity place, even though I was doing all this really deep work. So there's an example of that. How I moved out of that was having the awareness of, in order to manifest abundance and to be able to come from a powerful place of healing, I have to feel safe to receive. What that meant for me was healing my central nervous system and processing some really unconscious childhood trauma from like 2 to 5 years old that I didn't realize how. So what happens, you guys, when we have relational, because I didn't have any big T trauma as a child. It was all relational trauma. It was like, just stuff that was happening. Like my parents got divorced when I was really young. My dad then married another woman and decided not to see me anymore. My mom moved me up into the hills in California, and we moved a lot. There was just so much instability. And I didn't realize. So what happens, you guys, is that stores in your psyche, and then it becomes how you get defended towards the world. And then that becomes how you relate to the world. And then that becomes the creation of your life.
Thanks for watching, you guys. If you enjoyed this, click here to check out the full podcast episode. Click here to check out our full library of podcast episodes. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you can be the first to know when we're posting new ones. I'll see you soon.